Illinois state lawmakers have a little more than 2 months to deliver a balanced budget. It's a big challenge given they started the legislative session facing a projected shortfall of more than $3 billion. Governor Pritzker delivered his budget proposal in February, citing better than expected revenues to shore up some of the deficit. Then last month, the state's General Assembly's Commission on Budget Forecasting reported that revenues will be almost $750 million lower than the governor indicated in his budget address. So far, Democrats in Springfield aren't hitting the panic button. This figured to be a tough legislative session from the outset for Illinois state lawmakers because of the budget deficit. The deadline for answers is June 30th before the next fiscal year starts on July 1st, unless there is an overtime session. One man very close to those talks is Illinois Deputy Governor Andy Manar. He is Governor Pritzker's point man on the budget and economy. He joins us for a conversation this morning. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Now, there are a lot of naysayers about Illinois' budget picture. The governor proposed a significant budget increase, but it's not clear if the revenue will be there to support it. Conservatives, critical from the start, mocked the governor by saying he needs magic beans to balance the budget. What do you say to people who think Illinois might be in a doomsday budget scenario?
Well, I would first say look at what has been accomplished over the past 5 fiscal years since the governor took office. If you recall, just not too many years before that, under Governor Rauner, the state had consecutive credit downgrades. Budgets were wildly out of balance. There was at $1.17 billion worth of unpaid bills, just the Comptroller's office waiting to be paid. But today all of that is gone. It is in the past, and the governor has proven time and again, verified by 9 credit upgrades and balanced budgets that actually produce surpluses at the end of the fiscal year, that he knows how to do this work, and his agencies know how to manage through difficult times. And that, it might be a little harder this year because of what's happening nationally with the economy, but certainly the governor hasn't lost sight of that focus, and he's not going to sign a budget that is anything but balanced, that prioritizes what Illinoisans expect of their state government.
Now, I do understand that March's revenue numbers are a bit of a bright spot, an increase of $209 million for the same time last year, though that doesn't make up for earlier estimates from the General Assembly's Commission on Government Forecasting and Accountability, pointing to state revenues falling $737 million short of the governor's budget assumption. Now that, in my understanding, increases the budget shortfall. State Revenue Manager Eric Noggle is on the record saying Illinois needs a big fourth quarter like last year. That would have to be about $1 billion improvement if my math is right. How much are you counting on that, and how realistic is it to make up that kind of money in such a short time?
Yeah, well, I mean, these are great questions. And first, I should note that every year, our administration has approached revenue estimates from a conservative standpoint. We have consistently been below what our estimates have been, whether it's initially when the budget's proposed or during a legislative session like we are in right now in the spring, or throughout the fiscal year when we manage the budget. So this year is no different. There just is a little more volatility than what we're used to. And I would go back to just what I said a few moments ago, Jim, that the governor's not going to sign a budget that's out of balance or that uses trumped up revenue estimates or things that are inflated on purpose just to make some difficult choices a little bit easier. He's never done that. He's not going to do it this year, despite the challenges that we have. So in the next couple of weeks, we will have what I think will be a final revenue estimate for next fiscal year, which begins on July 1st. And again, you will see what the governor has done in the past, which is a conservative revenue estimate, which is a good step forward in terms of planning for a budget for the next fiscal year. Regardless of the challenges, that's where we're going to go this year as well.
Well, now you're a former state lawmaker yourself. What decisions is your office trying to guide state lawmakers to make at this point? I know you have to work with them somehow.
Yeah, and we have shown again over, especially the last couple of fiscal years, when when revenues are plateauing, they're going up just slightly, but we're not seeing the year-over-year revenue increases, despite the fact that the state's economy continues to grow, which is another good sign underpinning all of our budget decisions. We've enjoyed good relationships with the Senate, and that's going to continue. And look, if you go back just a few years ago, just think of how budget making was going in Springfield. Just think of how haphazard and uncertain it was, and the impact that had on our public school districts, our healthcare providers, senior citizens looking for services, early childhood education, non-for-profit groups in the Quad Cities and beyond. think of how difficult the world was then for them because of uncertainty coming from Springfield. That has been all put aside almost completely. And I think no one in Springfield wants to go back to that. So again, despite the challenges that we have, and we do have significant challenges this year. The governor outlined that in the budget address back in February. We're not going to go back to the time when we inject uncertainty into communities across the state. We're going to do our jobs. The governor's going to sign a balanced budget, and we'll negotiate that with the General Assembly.
Well, local governments are feeling a lot, and local programs are certainly feeling some uncertainty here. And we're speaking in generalities, but some programs could certainly have to see some spending cuts if the revenue target isn't met. Where do you think that pain would be most likely felt?
Well, we've already seen some of that, and if you dig into the details of the governor's budget proposal that he put on the table a couple of months ago, he even proposed some cuts to programs that he championed in years prior. And look, that's just an indication of where we're at, where he upfront says even things that we as an administration have advanced and have been focal points, we just can't do as much of that this year. And I think that's reflective of how families balance their budgets. I mean, if inflation has an impact, clearly, on the pocketbooks of families across Illinois, things have to be adjusted. And so, again, gone are the days where, in response to increasing costs, for example, the state artificially inflates a revenue estimate just to make a budget artificially come into balance. We're not going to do that. The governor's leading in this effort to make state government more efficient. There's any number of examples over the past couple of fiscal years where we have saved hundreds of millions of dollars by just doing things a little bit differently, digging into operations of state agency, finding things that can be consolidated or cut, extracting savings out of the bureaucracy. That's one reason why we've had balanced budgets. That becomes all the more important this year, and you will see a focus on that in the final weeks of session.
Can you get specific on some of those cuts potentially?
Sure. For example, we renegotiated healthcare contracts for providers that provide health insurance, which is an important benefit for the recruitment and retention of state employees in the workforce around the state. So we renegotiated those contracts. I'll give you one that might make you chuckle, but the Department of Corrections decided that serving certain type of food, for example, buying fresh potatoes instead of buying frozen potatoes, that is used in cafeterias, it saves money. Those are the types of things that we do every day in this administration that the governor demands of his agencies. And when you add up, you save $100,000 here or a couple $1 million there in a $54+ billion budget, that's real savings that can then be redirected to things like school funding or services for seniors, early childhood education, or in this year, help balance the budget that is being pressured because of what's happening to economics today in the country.
What will happen to Medicaid in Illinois if there are cuts to the program at the federal level? Is Illinois in any position to offset that?
No, and the governor's been very clear about this. If there are cuts to Medicaid, Donald Trump and the Republicans in Congress are going to own that. And we should be very clear, Jim, that some of the first impacts we will see is in hospitals and healthcare providers in rural areas and in urban areas like with safety net hospitals. That's something the governor has been very vocal in terms of the need to preserve Medicaid funding. We've done amazing work in Illinois, led by the governor, Democrats in the General Assembly, to expand health care. It's critical that that continue. Any cut at the federal level by President Trump and the Republicans in Congress will have a devastating impact on the state.
Deputy Governor Andy Manar, thank you. We have more of this conversation for you in a web extra online at ourquadcities.com.